Hi, I'm Dr. Jeff Alexander from Ignite Programs. What is the secret to manifesting what you want? Well, I get that one asked a lot, and I'd like to share with you a true story. Probably, I think the year was 1984. I was at my children's dental clinic. That's what is one of my claim to fame. I opened up 7 children's dental clinics for underprivileged children in California. There I was one afternoon, and I was working on a child that was about 4 or 5 years old, and like we do almost every single day, there was a loose baby tooth that needed to come out. Now, usually when you have to take out a baby tooth, there's a little bit of fear sometimes from the children, and so it's not a procedure that everybody kind of gets excited about. And so I took the baby tooth out, and of course the child asked what all the kids asked in our company: does a tooth fairy come tonight? And you got to be careful how you word that, because not every family has a tooth fairy that comes and visits the children. So we had our pat answer. And then on Thursdays, I would go volunteer for the other side of the spectrum. I would help the elderly, because a lot of these people in the part of town where I went to, it was kind of a repressed area, and there was the elderly there that many of them were bedridden, and they couldn't go to a dental office to get help. So I'd volunteer on Thursday nights. I'd go there and I would, work with some of the elderly there. And I had one of my favorite patients. Her name was Grace. Now, Grace was bedridden, and she pretty much never got out of the bed. And she had another bed with her in her room where it was her roommate. And her roommate had just passed away. It was the only person she really had as a friend for the last 15 years. So Grace was pretty much deteriorating. She never left anywhere. She had tubes. I remember she was constantly breathing oxygen. She never left. And when I showed up one afternoon, and she literally was on the telephone. There was this yellow telephone between the 2 beds. Now, the other side was empty. She was all by herself in that bed. And so she picked up the telephone, and she was on the phone when I walked into the room. As soon as I walked into this room to go visit Grace, she looked embarrassed and she slammed the phone down. And I said, "Oh, Grace, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you." She goes, "Oh, no, dear, that's okay. Come on in." So I was just kind of teasing her a little bit. "So who are you talking to? You're talking to your boyfriend on the phone?" And she wouldn't tell me. She looked really embarrassed. And finally, I got out of her that she was talking to a recording on the telephone. And it was the days where you used to be able to dial. It was a rotary phone in those days. You could dial the word popcorn. And what would come up is an automatic response of what time of the day it was. It's now 10:10 and 22 seconds. And it would just go on for 24 hours. So I asked Grace, I said, "Well, why were you on the phone for so long?" And this is when it hit me. She said, "Well, I haven't talked to anybody on the telephone for over 20 years. And since my roommate passed away, I've been really alone and been lonely a lot. And so this is as close as I can get to hearing a human voice on the telephone." I was devastated. I always knew that there was a sense of loneliness for some of the people in this environment, but I didn't know the depth of it until that day. So I quickly changed the subject. I looked at Grace and basically went back to work, and I never ever could forget that moment. So about a week or 2 went by, and I'm back in my office again, and I'm treating a child, and again we had to take out a baby tooth, and again the child said, "Is a tooth fairy coming?" All of a sudden, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I looked up, and this light bulb went out. This electricity went through my body, and I got the answer to Grace. I went, "Okay." Well, I answered him the best I could, and then that night, it wasn't my scheduled time to go to this particular elder care home, but I went that night. I ran into Grace's room. She was in her room. She looked at me. She goes, "Oh, dear, what's going on?" I said, "Grace, how would you like a job?" And she looked at me really strange, and I sat down. I said, "How would you like to be the tooth fairy for my company?" And she just had this blank stare. I will never forget this blank stare. She looked at me and she said, "What?" "Yes." And I explained to her that what would it be like if I took the phone number to that yellow phone next to your bed and put that in my office with a special sign that says Tooth Fairy and that phone number. And, you know, you would have children call you all day long. And her eyes, I remember they got teared up. She stared at me. She goes, "Oh, my dear." She goes, "But I've never been a tooth fairy before." I said, "Well, not many people have." And so we wrote out a little script. I said, "Go ahead, don't promise them a car or anything, but, you know, here's the script. Stay within the line of the script, but basically just be there for the kids." And so she got so excited. I ran back to the office. I told my whole staff about this. And you have to understand, at the office in those days, we had 9 chairs all in one big giant room. And there's no walls in between, so everybody could see everybody else, and the kids do far better in that kind of environment. And I couldn't wait for the next baby tooth that's coming out. Now, I'm noticing that's not how I usually felt about extracting teeth, but this day I couldn't wait. And finally he shows up. Here's little Douglas. He shows up. He has a loose baby tooth. It needs to come out. I got to have him, and everybody's all excited. The phone number is above the phone in our back office. And so I told Douglas, after we got the baby tooth out, I said, "How would you like to talk to the tooth fairy?" Now remember, this little guy had a cotton roll in his mouth, and his eyes got big, and he goes, "Really? Yeah, I like to talk to the tooth fairy." And I said, "Well, there's the phone number right over there." He leans forward and he goes, "Tooth fairy got a phone?" And I said, "My tooth fairy has a phone." And so he got up. Now you have to understand, the office was packed. Everybody stops. We're all listening. We're all watching this little guy walk over to the phone with a cotton roll in his mouth. He gets the phone and he starts to dial. And at the other end, because it was a speaker phone, at the other end we hear, "Hello, this is the tooth fairy." And he put his hand over the receiver. He looks at all the other kids. He goes, "It's the tooth fairy. Tooth fairy's got a phone." And he had this whole dialogue. It was so sweet with Grace, our tooth fairy, on the telephone. Now, that was enough to everybody in the office. It made everybody's day. And we couldn't wait for the next extraction to take place. And so that, I would tell you that that's the end of the story, but it's not. And here's what happened. We were so excited. It went for about 2 or 3 weeks. Grace got anywhere from 5 to 6 phone calls a day on this phone, and she got to talk with children all day long. It shifted her overnight. She took the tubes out. She literally was in a wheelchair, and she started to move around the place where she never did this before. And then how it would be about a month later, I go in there. I'm all pretty cocky here about how we were able to accomplish this with this one particular problem of loneliness. I walked in, and one of the nurses came running up to me. She goes, "Dr. Alexander, you've got to go to the lounge. All of the residents are in the lounge. They all want to talk to you, and so's Grace." Okay. So I walked into the lounge. You got to visualize about 30 to 35 people, some of them in their gowns, some of them walking around with their oxygen and their IV drips, and they're all sitting around tables, and Grace is over here, and Grace looks at me, and she goes like this. And I said, "Well, what can I do for everybody?" I never forget this guy. He looked like he could be called Biff. He was huge. He was a big guy. He walks over, and he's rolling this IV solution. He comes up to me, and he goes, "Hey, when are we going to get a shot at being the tooth fairy?" True story. And so I immediately looked at Grace. I said, "Well, we got to figure out something here." So what we created that afternoon was a Tooth Fairy Club. And Grace was now promoted to CEO of the Tooth Fairy Club. And what her job was to schedule all the other residents with some training, and Grace was the person who trained them all, and then they'd have shifts. From 2 to 5, it was Biff, he's going to be the tooth fairy. From 5 to 6, so it was all day long. They were scheduling their shifts of who gets to talk on the phone with these kids. Now again, I wish I could tell you that that was the end, but it wasn't. This is what happens when you want to manifest something. What you put out, you get back. Here's where the results are, is that sooner or later, what happened is that the parents got hold of this. I got a phone call from AM San Francisco, a local television network in San Francisco. The guy, the producer of the show, says, "Is this Dr. Alexander?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "We understand that you have a resident tooth fairy." And I started to laugh. I told him the story. He says, "We want you on air. Can you make it tomorrow morning?" So I showed up, I told the story on television, and then I took some live answers, cute questions and answers on air, and literally would have me come every other week on television to be the resident expert on children's dentistry. And here's what happened. We started to get so popular down there that we attracted over 1,500 new patients in the next month and a half. And I can't tell you what that translated into money when you have that kind of surge in people. And they all came on a free television show that I was invited to go on to talk about Grace, the Tooth Fairy, and answer questions and contribute to the community. So what you put out, you get back. Now, when we first had this idea, the only purpose is to bring some joy to this one elderly person so she didn't feel so alone in the world. You know, it's kind of like everybody has their eye on the fruit. The fruit is sweet. They want the fruit, they want the fruit. But let me tell you something, what I want to leave you with. If you want the fruit, you've got to water the tree. And you've got to love watering the tree and get your attention off the fruit. Watering the tree is what Mother Teresa did in serving the poorest of the poor. You learn to love watering the tree, and there's always enough fruit. You'll have an orchard. But you must shift. Get your attention off the end result and enjoy the process of serving another human being. If the whole planet did this, there'd be enough fruit in the abundance of that particular process to feed everyone, not just physically, but in their hearts. So what I want to leave you with is that many times you're going to experience situations like I did, where I saw Grace and there was some despair there, and just see that as an invitation. That's an invitation that when there's a problem out there that you can recognize that literally with it comes not just the challenge, but the opportunity to serve another human being. And when you make that step forward, and you go and you love to just water that tree to serve another human being, I promise you, always what will come back is extraordinary results. So, with that in mind, we hope to see you at the next live event, Ignite Your Life, and come and learn how to water that tree no matter what stands in front of you. Hi, if you really like that video, please subscribe. That way you can get notifications of future videos I'm excited to share with you. Also, feel free to comment below. I get a lot of the subject matter from you, so I can address the topics that you want to hear the most about. And if you want to know more about our live events, go to my website listed below. Looking forward to meeting you in person.